Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to us occupying your brain space for the next hour. I always feel like such a creep when I do the intros. I'm like, hello, I'm in your brain. Let me settle in. It's just weird. But hi, fam. Anyway, so we're with Lisa Zarworthy, who you are going to enjoy. And if you don't, you have no sense of humor. And I feel sorry for you. That's not my problem. That is your problem. She is funny, smart, actionable, good, just good at what she does. So Lisa is a productivity expert. She's going to help you get your shit done, which I know a lot of you struggle with. Sometimes your girl included. You know what I mean? Hi. Welcome.
Hi, it is my pleasure to be here. And yeah, I mean, come on, let's get a sense of humor and have some fun here, because
Right?
otherwise, what's the point?
What do people with no sense of humor do? Like,
Oh man,
I really
drag
don't know how
us
they live
down.
their-
I don't know.
I really don't know how they live their life. Like sometimes I meet people with no sense of humor and I'm like, oh,
How's
all
it working out for you?
right. I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know how they function, honestly.
When you were describing okay, if you don't have a sense of humor, that's on you.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
on you.
immediately thinking that's a you problem.
That's not me. I'm funny. Although maybe some people don't think I'm funny, but then I'm also like, you have bad taste. So I don't know what to do with that either.
See, I think I'm funny, and that's all that matters. So my husband rolls his eyes, like I'm surprised he hasn't pulled muscles in his eye sockets, but he's like, "Yep, that's Lisa," and I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah, funny and pretty. I tell everyone God gave with two hands. Like God gave with both hands with this one.
I know it was highly unfair, but what are you going to do? I'm just glad to be around you.
Have a podcast so more people can enjoy.
There you go. Yeah.
How are you, dude? So for you guys that don't know, I interviewed on Lisa's podcast.
Mhm.
It was on the Instagram if you must go find it. And now Lisa is on mine and we love it. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here continuing the conversation because we had so much fun. It was this beautiful blend of Amanda's amazeballs, tough love on, get it together. And because self-care is within your grasp. So
Right.
grab it and go. And it's amazing. I'm getting phenomenal response to it.
Yay.
Just loving it. And I'm loving being able to continue this conversation, but then, spin it to the productivity side of things.
Yes, ma'am. So set us up. How did you get into what you do?
Yeah, I lived the overwhelm. I lived the survival mode, and
Yeah.
I did it as a caregiver for my mom with my two kiddos. Well, actually, I was pregnant with my son and then my daughter. So I went through two pregnancies, an infant and a toddler, and a mom with Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And man, and I don't like weighing down the conversation, but you got to sometimes because it's a real dark, serious time. And it was tough. But what it did do was set me forth into the world with these huge life lessons, the big ones like don't sweat the small stuff. And oh my gosh, how much of it is really small stuff when you stop to think about it, right? It was also about, can we just not keep adding stuff all the time? One of the biggest aha moments I had when all was said and done, when she had passed on, I didn't have to care for her. And I was like, okay, do I get a job? What do I do? What do I do? It was what do I do? What do I add back in? And I was like, no, wait, I got to clear a path. I have to take a minute. I have to step back. I have to check in with me. And I'm so grateful for that inner voice that told me that, because it's our instinct, and you see it everywhere.
Yep.
You see it with empty drawers and empty closets and empty spaces and empty spots on the calendar. Empty. People think it's like, I have to fill that.
Right.
And I was like, no, actually, you know what that is? That's breathing room. It's potential. It's space to decide and intentionally place something that's going to be really amazing. Don't rush to fill it. That was like that big takeaway. And I just zoomed into being a professional organizer because that was the obvious, tangible way to do it, right? Help people declutter, help them organize their space. You know what it's like. You clean out a space, you clean the kitchen, you clean out a closet. You're like, hey, you feel totally different.
Yeah. So in my work, I'll tell you, I will help people work through trauma and they'll fill it with drama.
Ooh.
Because their brain,
that's their clutter. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Their brain is used to having a certain level of stimulation because trauma makes you hypervigilant. It makes you heavy. It makes you worried. It makes you all these things. And so they'll fill it. They'll like just find shit to worry about And they're like, my neighbors, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, bro, ignore your neighbors. Like, what are you doing? Stop doing that. Or like, my friend is doing, and I'm like, no one cares. Stop doing that. So yeah, people will like heal their trauma. And then it's actually, I've actually never talked about this, but it does happen. It is a discipline to not then fill it with drama.
Yes.
Just have peace and to keep it.
It's the same thing with the discipline of decluttering and saying, okay, I'm going to, keep this drawer only half filled, or I'm going to keep that space in the corner, empty. It's a discipline to say that's not a bad thing. I don't need the protection of that clutter. And that's really been my fascination this whole time. And the first time I walked into someone's home and I started helping them with the physical stuff, I was like, oh, it's not even the physical stuff. It's head and heart. That's what it is. So that was what I was fascinated by. And I very quickly moved. I mean, I did a lot of professional organizing on site, but I moved very quickly to, I called it productivity coaching because that seemed like the good overarching way to describe what we're trying to do. But I help people declutter their minds constantly. And it's that same thing, you want to fill it. So that's a really good point. I'm making a big old note of that. We got to chat about that on Insta sometime about the trauma healing. And then you're like, great, we've healed it. We've opened up that space, and they immediately want to fill it. That's a constant.
I'm sure you saw it in your organizing where people were like, I need to do so. Okay. So I'm going to go on a rant for about 5 seconds. People will do where I need to declutter my space, and then they'll declutter their space. They'll see the empty space. They'll fill it back up, right? Because they never got to the root of the problem.
Bingo.
I also see people do it with things like the gym. Oh, gym is my therapy. The gym is not fucking therapy. Stop doing it. It can be a stress release. It can be a buffer. It can be self-care. It can be many things, but it will not help you get to the root of your problems, which is what actual therapy is, which is what actual coaching should do. Right. So if you just give people tips and say, oh, time blocking, but we never figure out why someone is uncomfortable with stillness, why someone never has clarity, then we're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, but there's also an alien crawling out of the bullet wound. So then you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. You're like, no, alien. And you're like playing whack-a-mole with an alien. And it's like, this is not going to work. We have to like rip the alien out and then actually close the wound. That ended up in a weird analogy, but it's fine.
Yeah, but you have the best analogies. Just going to put that out there. I mean, so number one, all the yeses, number one. And number two, this is exactly why I am a productivity coach the way that I am. And I'm constantly having a conversation where I'm like, no, we're not going to talk about calendars and planners and platforms and things like that yet. We will get there eventually. They have their place. Right. They absolutely have their place, but not yet. It's the productivity mindset first. It's understanding where you come from, what your values are, what trauma and grief that is unresolved that you're dealing with. Because I don't care how good a habit system you have, right? I don't care how well, you have set up ClickUp or, how good a habit system you have.
Right.
If there's something missing there that you haven't done that foundational work,
right,
it's not going to happen.
Right. And people get lost in the organizing, right? So they'll have like planning paralysis, and then they're like, oh, I can't get anything done because I don't know what to do, but they never admit they don't know what to do. They're just like, I have so many things to do. And it's such a discipline to do. Like when you and I were talking about this and you said less, but more. Less but better. And I was like,
yes.
So exciting.
Yeah.
That is
do
such
less.
a discipline.
Right. And that's the thing I thought about, like originally productivity, this idea of productivity, you go back to the industrial age, right? They're trying to get workers to work more, right? So that they can have more, things that they're creating in the factory. So it's like, okay, you have these hours to make how many products. Okay. You want to get more out of it. I mean, that was the whole concept.
Right.
But we're in an information age now. We are in a completely different era where we need to start thinking of productivity as quality. To me, it's about doing the right thing at the right time, the right way for you. It's about making space for what matters.
Talk dirty to me.
Right.
I love this.
Right.
And, I think people don't think about how much stimulus we take in So I'll put this in terms of like, this is going to be a weird connection, but I'll put it in terms of autism or sensory processing disorders, right? So a lot of people will be like, oh, vaccines cause autism. And it's like, no, at me, vaccine, people like, stop it. One of the things that I think is an interesting correlation is how busy life is, how we have electricity now, how things are busier, things are louder. There's so much more stimulus than there was, even 30 years ago, but think about 100 years ago. So what happens is that people exist in a state of overwhelm. So no wonder people don't have clarity. And when you have access to so much information, you can do so many things. And so the point about autism is like, there's a higher case of autism for a number of reasons, right? We call it autism. It has a name now. We have a diagnosis for it. But part of it is because in an environment where people are more still, where people slow down, where people can specialize, where people tended to work one job for a long time, they spent more time outside, life was just slower, then those quirks aren't really a problem. So human beings have sped up so exponentially in the last like 30 years that everyone is so overwhelmed, everyone's confused. And then you see these people like, I can connect to people, I would never have connected to you if the internet didn't exist. The downside of that is now I connect to people who are like, I made $1 million in 6 months. I blah, blah, blah. Like we compare and we say, well, how did they do it? I have to do everything that they do. And we're not clear. We don't know, why are we doing these things? Why do I even want those things? Do I want to make $1 million in 6 months? I don't know. What's the cost? Maybe.
Thank you.
I feel like I got a little off on a tangent there. I don't know where I'm going, but that's where I ended up.
But you know what? You have so beautifully described everything that we're going through, and it ties back. So what we're doing right now is we're talking about similar concepts, but you and I are just having, it's different languaging, right? Okay. Yeah. Because it's like, I'm coming from the productivity side and the clutter side, and people like, your productivity coach, but you're talking about clutter constantly. I'm like, cause it's everywhere.
It's
and
everywhere.
You don't always realize it. Yes. It's the stuff in the laundry basket that you didn't put away. Ask me how I know. But it's also the shoulds and the to-dos and the constant chatter in our minds because we are afraid of the stillness or to be alone with our thoughts. It's the information overload you're talking about, where it's like, you want to be an entrepreneur? Let me give you a bajillion freaking ways to do it. And yes, it's wonderful for a researcher like me. I'm like, ooh, data, data, yay. But you have to have, it goes back to discipline, right? You have to build that discipline to be like, but that's not for me. But that's not for me. So I talk in clutter terms constantly: information overload and emotional and physical. It's so many different kinds of clutter that really, and this is Peter Walsh's quote, that it's not just the stuff on the floor, but what gets in between you and the life you want to be living. Right? That's
Repeat
clutter.
that, please.
Okay. So I want to make sure I have it right. Okay. Clutter isn't just the stuff on the floor, but it's anything that gets, I think I'm paraphrasing it.
It's okay.
Gets in between you and the life you want to be living. What is blocking you from the life you want to be living? That is clutter. So if you have a huge like collection of guitars, because that's your thing, and you have them organized and you play them all and you're in bands and you love it and you thrive, that's not clutter, people.
Hell yeah.
Right. So it's very, I think, it tends to be easy for everyone to be like, oh, that's clutter. That isn't. I'm like, yeah, no.
Well,
let's rethink this.
So right? I follow Ramit Sethi. Do you know who that is?
Yes.
Oh my God. I love him. I recommend him all the time. People listen, Ramit Sethi. We are obsessed. Also, if you know him personally, I want to be his friend. So introduce ya girl. So he talks a lot about how people shouldn't really understand your rich life because it should be so personal to you. And I would counter that. Well, I would follow that too. Like your productivity, your life, your business, the way that you do your job, right? Obviously every job has like formats or things that you have to do, but the way that you do that and the way that you structure it, it shouldn't make sense to me because it's yours. Your house should not necessarily make sense to me.
Exactly.
Because it's your house. The way that your things are set up should not make sense to me. They should not be perfectly aligned with me because I'm not the one living in your house.
Yeah, everything about you, your idiosyncrasies, your preferences, your tendencies, everything that your coping mechanisms, everything that has built you to be the you that you are, you need systems that are going to function best for you. And that's my chief complaint. Love it. That is my chief complaint about all of the organizing systems out there, the productivity systems, the planners. Hey, this is going to organize you. I'm like, no, containers don't organize you. Containers contain things. And in your plan, right? Your planners and your platforms, they're only going to be as good as your process. The reason why Marie Kondo worked for so many people is because she gave everyone that it worked for a very simple filter to use in their life. And I that's the word that I use for filtering.
You fill it in.
Right. And so for some, it was like that structure made sense. It hit home. It was simple. It was easy to do, and it worked for them. The people who came to me who were like, well, I tried it. It kind of worked, but mostly I'm like, I don't know. These jean shorts don't spark joy. I'm so confused,
Yeah.
And I was like, that's because we are complex beings. There are more filters than just sparking joy.
Sure.
She got the point across, but we need to understand so much more about how we live and other functional things, like going back to our hierarchy of needs. And sometimes you have to keep things that don't spark joy because you don't have the money to go buy something else that might spark joy more. And then it gives you an opportunity to think, well, maybe it wasn't sparking joy in the first place, but I was just comparing to everybody else. And I thought I needed that. It gives you a chance to step back again and do that foundational work and create your own filters for what belongs and what doesn't in your life.
So it sounds like the biggest factor that makes people successful in being effective. Because you're right. You don't want to just produce a lot if it's not high quality or if it's not the right things.
Yeah.
Then is knowing yourself. Like if you don't have knowledge of self, how do you even know what to do, what you want to do, where you're going, what's going to work for you? So knowledge of self is really the base of all those things. And I'll tell you something I run into a lot. People use busy as a cover up for being cut off from their life and from themselves. The amount of people I have had to give a list of emotions to because they quite literally are that cut off. They can't even name emotions except for anger. Anger always gets through.
Yeah.
The only one that does when you're that cut off is honestly surprised me. Like I would say, how do you feel about that? And they're like, I literally don't know. And I'm like, oh, okay, you need a list of emotions. But if you're that cut off, if you're that busy, if you are avoiding stillness, there's a reason for that. You don't know how to be with yourself because you don't like yourself, because you don't know yourself. Like you cannot even do any, no wonder you're not getting anything done.
Yeah.
Because you don't know yourself at all.
So my first podcast episode was on, the deeper purpose of productivity, and that our number one productivity tool is self-awareness.
Yes.
Hello, right there. Boom. So you just said it. So thank you, by the way.
Right.
I'm not paying her. I'll give you your check later. No, Venmo. So that's it. Because you have to know yourself. And this concept of clutter, one of the things that, over time, working with so many people, seeing the connection, I'm probably a productivity coach that talks about trauma way more than any other you'll find.
But it matters.
It matters. It's so interconnected, and everything that you're talking about, I'm loving these connections that we're making, but it's like, there's so much to figure out and to think about and to understand, because when you know how you work best, and then you understand that distinction between busy versus productive. I don't mind the hustle. And I think in this non-hustle culture, it gets a little extreme. Everyone's like way mellow. I'm like, no, we can be excited. Right. I'm like freaking stoked to be here. And I'm like, my energy is like, woo.
Yeah.
And you have launches and you have things you want to create and do. You need to be able to hustle, but it needs to be in a healthy sprinting kind of way.
And in a way that moves the needle.
Yes.
You got to move the needle.
And feels right for you. You feel that push, just like the idea that stress isn't all bad. We talk about stress like it's this horrible thing, but you need some stress in order to push forward. But that thing about the busy, that
Oh,
busy is a form of clutter,
yep.
and it's a form of protection from something
Mm.
you don't want to deal with. And physical clutter can be that too. Think about it.
Oh,
If you have
yes.
social anxiety and you have I don't want to, it doesn't have to be hoarders, but it
Mhm.
could be just a really cluttered place
Yeah.
that doesn't exactly promote hospitality.
Mm. Oh, people
Isn't that
can't come over.
convenient?
My house is
Yeah.
messy.
Right.
I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
protection.
God. So I've been in a space of so I do like a word of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So 2022 for me was space. So because
Ooh.
2021 was busy, cluttered, it was just so, it was too much. And I'm one of those people that like, I love what I do. And if no one is paying attention, I will literally work myself to death. Like,
Right.
because I love what I do. And so it has been very, very hard. So I read Essentialism by
Yep.
Greg McEwen.
McEwen. And that
McEwen.
is the less but better phrase, by the way. Yep.
Life changing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Greg. So it has actually been like putting that into practice this year has been so hard. Has been so hard. It's
Yeah.
been difficult. Like,
I can totally see that. The word of the year thing, I've been doing that for ages as well. And
love it.
my word of the year
Helpful.
is fit.
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 I like it.
And yeah, think about all the different angles you can come. Yes, it is
Mhm.
health, but it's also intentionality. Is this right? Does this
Yeah.
belong? Because I want to take what I preach to the next level for
Right.
me. Because one of the things I love to do is connect and collaborate and help other people and lift other people up. And if you're new at something, I want to, support you,
Mhm.
but I have a lot going on. Things are
Mhm.
growing and I need to be very intentional about where my energy is flowing.
Yeah.
So I have to think about
Girl.
it. And,
Okay.
and I love, right? I love that I'm invited to be on many podcasts, but the fit has to be right.
Right. And that pays off in spades. Right. So, like, one of the things that I do, I live on a farm and I work on the farm. I see clients on the farm. This is what I like to do. I do it because it's true and authentic to me. And
How are your
literally,
horses, by the way?
oh my God, they're so good. They're fat babies. I actually need to
I
give them
love
a
it.
bale of hay. So they're complaining currently, but
So that you
yeah,
can sit and watch and listen to them eat, right?
it's
Every
literally
day.
my dream in life is to sit and listen to them eat.
Yeah. I'm
Like,
sorry to distract, but I just
no,
remembered
it's
that and
fine.
I
It's
wanted to
so
ask.
relaxing.
So
And we actually
yeah.
have, that's funny that you asked. So we just have 14 baby goats born.
Mm-hmm.
And they are so cute and they are nightmares. And I was just watching them. I was talking to my dad this morning and we were just watching the babies. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever done was buy a farm because it forces me to slow down, to watch them, to pay attention. Like animals are always, they don't give a shit about anything. They're
Oh,
always in the moment. So you get
so
to,
true.
watch them and you have this long eye line and you're outside a lot. And so the eating thing. So we have a goat named Peggy who is an escape artist. I should have named her Houdini. And she was like eating today and she was eating so loud. And I was like, Peggy, can you calm down, bro? And she was just like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and I was like, what are you doing? But it was just like to notice, like that's one of the beautiful things about stillness, right? And that's one of the beautiful things about creating an intentional life is I can say no to a lot of things. Well, I can say no to a lot of things anyway, but the point is like because I have this bigger yes, because I want to spend time on the farm, because I am not ever going to work in an office again in my life if I can help it. And I can't help it because I'm the boss. Like I don't have to work for anyone ever again.
Mm.
Those are things that I know are hard yeses. If I can help, if I don't want to, I'm not doing it. I don't want to work for someone else. I don't want to work in an office. I want to be home with my animals. I want to use them to help people. I want to work with certain people. I want a certain schedule. Like when we're very clear on who we are, what we want, and what we're willing to do to get it, and what the consequences are for not doing it, because everything has a cost, then it's so easy to say no to things that are not in alignment with that. And I love that you take that space with productivity because it really is alignment. But if people
Mm-hmm.
don't know themselves, they don't know what's in alignment. And that obviously doesn't work. So then you're saying yes to everything because you're afraid of missing out, because you're afraid of the opportunities passing by. So I wonder, this is a lot of things, and I could talk to you about this forever. I wonder if you weave in, or if you see a lot of clients who say yes because they're afraid of missing out on things, or because they're afraid the opportunity won't come back around. And if you do a lot of work with clients on saying, like, if it's the right opportunity and it's just the wrong timing, it'll come to you again.
Absolutely. And I also see with a lot of clients that fear of is not just fear of missing out, but fear of forgetting. That's where a lot of this cluttering comes in. We're like, I got to do it now. I got to sign up for it now because I'll forget about it. And that's where we can come into, okay, first of all, is this a right now thing? Because it might be a not right now. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean a no or a no forever, or it's never, ever going to come back and it's gone. And that's
we're all so dramatic.
I know, right? I'm like, whoo, okay.
Dramatic little gremlins.
Granted, I know it's important in the moment, but yeah, it's asking why it's important. And then you have to say, even if it's important and you'd love it, it might still be a not right now because you don't have the bandwidth for it. So then we set up.
Oh, that's hard to admit though.
I know. So we do work through that. But that's where you also say, you talk about the consequences, what you were just saying about the cost of something, the cost of saying yes, the cost of saying no. When you say yes to one thing, hi kitty, when you say yes to one thing, you say no to other things. And my question is always like, and are you saying no to yourself in some way? When you say yes to that thing, you've got to ask that question.
Yeah.
But the not right now thing can very easily be handled by setting yourself a reminder, setting up systems that say, let's revisit this. By looking at some of the frequency. I think courses and workshops and things like that are a great example that we see as entrepreneurs. We're constantly flooded with these things. And I'm like, have you tracked it? Because I've seen that come out every single year. Every Black Friday, there's going to be a sale there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's President's Day. It's National Pizza Day. Somebody's going to have a sale. It's going to happen. So, and even if you purchase something right now because you think there's never going to be a better opportunity.
Sure.
If you were to wait, you may be in a better place to actually maximize the value of that thing.
Sure.
It's not always about the cost or the timing then. And that actually goes into a concept called sunk cost fallacy that I talk a lot about with clutter, right? But it's not
Explain what it is.
Not just the clutter in your closet, but it can be the clutter of your time spent. And that's where you feel that you need to get the value back of whatever it is that you've purchased. I put all this time into learning ClickUp. I have to use it.
Into this relationship, into this job.
Bingo, exactly.
Oh God, I see that all the time.
Not being willing to let it go.
Yeah.
But imagine the freedom, because when I always say you're holding on so tight, then your hand isn't open to receive the better thing that's coming to you.
I literally said that yesterday. She literally said that yesterday to a client.
Twinsies.
White knuckling. I'm like, you're white knuckling this thing that, one, if you just release your grip, is going to be so much easier for you, right? You don't have to hold on to things so tightly, period.
Yeah.
Two, you're right. If your hands are closed because you can't let this thing go, you are literally not in receiving mode. And so part of productivity, and you're right, is doing the right thing at the right time and not continuing to do the wrong thing just because you've spent a lot of time on it.
Exactly. And I mean, you see that in so many ways.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's for
me, most often relationships.
Okay. Yeah. And that
People
would make
like,
sense
but I've
too.
been with them for 3 years. And I'm like, and you've hated them for 3. This sucks. Stop doing it.
And you want to talk about value, that's the whole, like, is it a win or a learn? Well, there's a lot to be learned, sometimes it's okay. I learned what I didn't want.
So I talk a lot about that when I talk about, again, relationships. So when I have clients who are ending an abusive relationship, I actually have them write a thank you letter to their partner. Obviously not when it first happens, because there's things that we have to process in order to do that. But I have them write a thank you letter to their partner, their ex-partner. And I said, even if all you write is thank you for teaching me what I deserve, and that I will never, ever go through this again. I said, that's an extremely valuable lesson. That's extremely valuable. And so I think thinking about things that you don't want to give up in terms of like, and I just had this conversation with a client yesterday. They're like, well, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what is it going to cost you to stay? And people don't think, because we don't want to admit what the consequences of our choices are. Mm-hmm. But if we look at productive as, what does it cost me to do this thing versus not do this thing? If the cost of not doing a thing is, I have more space to do the things I want to do, or I have space to just freaking exist. Because I think people forget like where creativity and energy comes from. Like, we're not machines. We have to rest. Like, we have to chill. We're mammals. Like, cats and dogs sleep a lot for a reason. We're also mammals. We got to rest more. Like, we were made to lounge and we just don't lounge enough. But that comes from being, I don't know, what's the word? Picky?
Yeah, I don't know. It comes from having this need to be busy constantly. And I call it the busy badge of honor, right? Because that is what society's constantly like, how are you? Busy? I didn't ask that. That's not
a feeling, but okay.
Okay. So why is that a good thing for you? Or why are you saying that? Are you saying that because you are identifying with your value equals what you're doing, right? And how much you're doing.
Oh my God, you are good. Yes.
Right?
Everything you're saying.
Yeah. Well, then what happens when you can't do that thing? Then
what do you see happen?
Yeah. How does that work? So we really have to step back from all that. There's just so much going on. And where's the time for reflection? A lot of times in productivity, I talk so much about white space or resting space. What I mean is, okay, in art, right? Or you have white space. In design, you have negative space, they call it. Or in when you're working out, you have rest days that are imperative for muscle growth and healing, right? Well, the healing comes from you're tearing the muscle, then you're healing it and you're growing. But we don't think of that in terms of the doing. We don't think of the value of the rest. But another thing too, reflection. How many times have you been like, I'm taking this course, I'm learning all these things, I'm taking all these notes. Go ahead and tell me how many times you looked back at those notes.
Ew.
Yeah.
I feel don't called
ask
out.
me that. I know.
So I have a document out. Yeah. So I have a document that I call Coaching Call Nuggies. And because I'm in coaching right now, in business coaching, I go through it.
Like chicky nuggies, right?
Chicky nuggies. Yeah. But I don't go through it as often as I'd like. So I actually made a plan after this coaching period ends. I think it ends in March, to take like 3 to 6 months to just go through and apply everything I've learned. Because when you're in a learning phase, you're doing some application, but it's obviously not the same. So you just called me out. Not as often as I want to is the answer to that question.
And, it's asking the questions and it's being curious. So we're not bringing the judgment.
Oh yeah, it's fine. Me too, girl.
Right? Like, yeah. Totes, right? Hello.
Yeah.
And it's the same. I constantly say, ask me how I know.
Right.
Been there, done that. I have the t-shirt. So it's okay, because now you're saying, okay, well then what do I do? How do I, tweak my approach? And again, from the productivity and scheduling standpoint, you learn things like right after you attend a session. I know for me, right after a coaching session is when I go over my notes. I do send action items to my clients, and I make note of what's going on immediately, because that is when it's freshest. So that's the thing you could do with a course, for example, or mastermind, or whatever you're attending is you just add 10 minutes on to whatever you scheduled right after to take a look at, to do a brain dump, to take a look at your notes and maybe identify 3 action items. They don't have to be done now. You don't have to be in action mode, but you have them there summarized, ready to go for the future when you go back. I love that.
Do you find that a lot of people start their journey in productivity, like start their self-growth journey in productivity, or do they typically come to you after already having been involved in personal development?
It's a big mix, actually, because I love when people come to me and they've worked on the personal development, but I do think that productivity can be like a great starting place because it is so tangible. We're like, I'm not productive. I'm not getting stuff done. What's going on with me? What's wrong with me? And I'm able to say, Yeah, nothing. And I've actually met with people who have then.
Brittany, your person is here. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. I've actually met with people who are like, I'm struggling with productivity. I don't know what's going on. And I have said, I would love to help you, but I'm not in a position right now. The place you need to be is therapy. You need to go see a therapist.
Love that. You know, that's something I find a lot of coaches will not do. Like they'll just take them on and it causes harm.
It does.
Like it causes harm. It's not, there are different levels that people, and people can do both, right? So sometimes I get the question on like, oh, like I have a therapist and I also have a coach. Like, yes, 100%, absolutely. But if you just have a coach and you need a therapist, that's where it gets really sticky.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. But yeah, people can have both, but I just love that because productivity like has its place, right? You have to do a certain amount of work before you can even apply what you need. And it does take a certain amount of awareness to have awareness. Like that is a practice. So if people are like, damn, Lisa knows what's up, which like should be everyone listening to this in the world. Everyone in the world should know.
I like that.
Yeah, right. We love that. Where do people start? If they're like, yeah, like, oh my God, you know what? I'm busy and I wear it as a badge of honor. And I would like to do less, but better. I would like to figure out really what I even want. Like, where do people start?
Okay. So a couple different ways. And again, some of this is going to be like, I got to figure out myself. Like, are you a podcast listener? Are you a book reader?
Sure.
But I have resources. Okay. First of all, the Positively Living podcast. There are a lot of really simple episodes. Thank you. Including one amazing one with Amanda. So if, you're taking a walk, you're going for a drive, you pop that on, get into the conversation with us, start thinking in those terms. I have a free resources library just packed full of all kinds of cool stuff. So personality tests, that's super fun. Do that. Like Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, the big 5. I actually use those prior to a session because I get a few, hints as to where your tendencies are going to be. And it helps me recommend the right kind of habit or the right kind of way to tweak your work week or whatever it happens to be. Because I know if you're a rebel or if you're an obliger or if you tend to be extremely extroverted, you're going to respond to different motivators and different things. So you can do that yourself to start with those. I mean, I don't know if I will take any personality quiz out there. What kind of potato chip are you? I mean, doesn't matter. I love that. I love learning about ourselves. They're so fun. I would probably be like, I don't know, sour cream and onion, but, you could start there. I have a list of those. I also have a couple of worksheets in the free resources library, core values one, but you can find quizzes online. I love those. Right. Yeah. Okay. There's a joy list one that I absolutely love. It's a set of prompts, asks you questions about what lights you up and what energizes you and what you lose track of time doing, all to help you answer the question, what is self-care for me, really? So,
and I think even that one takes a certain amount of awareness because a lot of people will say, nothing brings me joy. I lose time on TikTok. And I'm like, that is not the answer we're looking for. Like, that's where you lose it now, trying to distract yourself from your life. But like, where do you want it to be?
Right. Well, there are a few questions in there that are going to help dig a little deeper about times in your life, where it's not like, like you said, lose track on TikTok, no problem. But it's digging a little deeper into, okay, where were times maybe when you felt proud or you felt most creative or things like that. So when you start asking those questions, that's really what it is start asking these questions. You can walk away today. You don't have to go to a website or a book or anything and just start saying, what kind of person am I? Do I, you can even start with that whole introvert extrovert thing. You're like, do I like that quiet focus time or do I like to be out in the ruckus and collaborating and conversing? I'm sure you can't guess what I am. But,
are you an extrovert?
Yeah, what? You are so intuitive. It's like magical,
Like
like
I'm a
psychic
therapist.
kind of powers. I
What do
mean,
you think
yes,
I am?
obviously.
No, I'm
Yes.
curious.
Actually, I would almost pull ambivert out of my,
Yeah.
because you
Fair.
show up in different ways. But yeah, but I mean, if you made me pick one, I'd go for extra. Because you're showing up
people
that way.
think that, but
Is it
people are very draining. Yeah. I need a lot of downtime.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that is the distinction that I haven't seen, but now it makes sense that
That's
you're
the
talking
distinction I
about
make. Like people energize you or they drain you.
Okay.
That's the clearest one that I found, because I love people, but they take a lot of energy.
Okay. And that, and it makes sense now that you talk about being on the farm and just needing that quiet time. So that is your recharge.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that the places that you can start, you could grab a book that inspires you, but really just that's the easiest step, is like take a personality quiz, start to think about what it is that makes you tick. That's what I would say.
I love that. And I love that you take the stance of like making it work for you. Cause I think a lot of people will implement hacks, tips, systems, processes, not really understanding that like they're completely counterintuitive. So like, for example, in my business, I use a method called profit first. Love profit first. But if I had to keep like a strict budget and spreadsheets and like I would quite literally rather eat sand. I would just eat sand instead of doing it. Like there's no way that would work for me. Or like, I know that like, I'm not going to clean my house. Like, I just don't want to deep clean my house ever in my life. Literally ever. I hate it. So I hire someone. Like, so I found a system that works for me. I hire someone. Her name is Sam. She comes twice a week. We love her. Like, so I clean, not like, I mean, like I live on a farm, but it's clean. But like, I found a system that works for me, which was to hire that out. So I think too, like once we know ourselves, we can know. So like Ramit also talks about things like money dials, right? So like convenience, traveling, food, things like that. Like once we know ourselves, we can also say like, okay, where do I actually want to invest a lot of my time and energy and money and attention? And what do I not really care about? So that way we're not doing things that we don't care about, which is also more productive.
Right. And you're going back to alignment here, right? This idea that doing things that you don't really care about, that don't matter to you, that don't match your values, I promise you won't show up properly for it.
No.
It will
and
be
it's so draining.
Thank you. I was just about to use that word. It's so energy draining. And my philosophy on time management, I know we talk about time management. I still use it because people like to use that phrase, but really it's not time management. We have the time that we're dealing with. How are we managing us? It's self-management, priority management, and energy management. And you think about it, like right now I am in, a time of like what I call my post-COVID time. And I feel a different kind of energy drain.
Yeah.
I need to be compassionate to that. I need to be responsive to that. I need to be selective. And if I may also add to this conversation that I'm loving so much, is that you were talking about being productive and efficient and choosing and being selective. And may I just say, every single time you have choices in front of you, don't ask the question, how can I get it done? Ask the question, how can it get done? Or does it even need to get done?
Yes. Right.
Don't organize what you don't intend to keep. Right. Thank you.
I love that.
Yes.
Don't organize what you don't intend to keep. That.
Yeah. That's wasted energy. We waste so much.
Oh my God. It's also connected. And like, I've never heard someone talk about productivity from the stance of like self-care and the life that you love. And I think there's honestly no better work. So I get the question a lot where people are like, what's my purpose? What am I doing here? Nothing brings me joy. And I'm like, you're cut off from your emotions. You can't feel anything, which means you can't feel joy. Like we allow it all or we allow nothing except anger. Again, anger is always the one that gets through. But I'm like, it's because you don't allow yourself to be sad, because you don't allow yourself to be still, because you're too busy. Stop it. And this is all so related and I just love everything. And now I forgot where we were going with that. Oh, but I love this. We're back. I love that you take the stance of like, all of this is the whole point of doing anything, especially this kind of work, is to build a life that you like. Like that's it. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. Enjoy your life. Make it work for you. It's like that simple, and it's that hard because it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not getting out of this life with extra bonus points because you increase the level of difficulty. Okay.
Or because you are a martyr.
Yeah, it's not an Olympic round here. Okay.
Right.
You know, denying yourself doesn't make you a better caregiver. Yeah,
Right.
let's design a
Right.
life that you don't
You
want
don't have
to
to suffer.
escape from.
Oh my
Right?
God. Yes. The amount of people that I have that are like, I just want to move away. And I'm like, bro, you're still going. Like, it's going to be the same problems. Like, it's you.
You're taking them with you.
Not your environment. I mean, you know, it can be partly environment, but I like this higher level work is just, and obviously people are struggling, like they're not in the space for it, right? If you are in survival mode, if you are like healing from trauma, like you're just not there yet, but you can get there. But it's so rewarding. And I wonder if you see this, and this is something I talk to a lot of coaches about, because it's a trend that I see with people. Once they start doing things that are right and authentic and true for them, opportunities fall into their laps that they have been closed off from for so long. And it's simply because like they're taking ownership and control of their choices in their life. And I wonder if that's something that you see too when you work with clients.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's so much going on. And I think it's well, okay. So now I have to start talking about like, you know, gratitude and vision boards and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And can we talk about the reticular activating system, please?
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. So the RAS there, you know, again, because I love the filters. I love this idea that we're filtering constantly, and our brain is constantly filtering for us. And when we're closed off, when we're hurting, we're not looking for those opportunities. We're not innovating. We're not creating. Like you said, you know, we're not in that space. So as soon as we start to do some of that work, we're like, that was a healing moment. I feel it. We're opening up to these possibilities. And you're right. And then it feels like these opportunities are just like dropping in your lap.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. And it's wonderful to see. I love seeing that because even, okay, last night, client came on the call, tech wasn't working, was just running from another like appointment and brought that energy in. And it turns out our entire conversation was how her transfer of energy and how her inability to recover from a certain kind of energetic state was actually what was causing her lack of productivity moving forward. That's what that was.
Okay.
Right. So, and I saw it happening and I was like, okay, so before we even start before we even start talking, we're going to do a breathing exercise.
Yeah. Because we're just going to shift energy.
Yeah. And so we did that. And she actually did it multiple times because it was a lot going on. Need it. Sometimes, right? You got to put that on repeat. And then she was like, oh, and I said, you can't be properly focused if you're frenetic. You're running.
Right.
Yeah. And we carry that in. And so, and I see this, you know, again, from a productivity standpoint, from a calendar standpoint, we're running that busy thing again, from one thing to the next thing to the next. There's no transition. There's no buffer. You know, that's my advice. Like my one piece of advice is look at your calendar and start adding buffer. Like start adding,
also,
you know, okay. Just saying. Love you. Mean it.
I may be working with you. Hello. Probably need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Create a buffer. Like, so I tell clients, and I see this and I wonder if you see it and if you've made the connection, but I suspect you have because you are good at what you do. I have a lot of people who can't sleep because their mind won't stop. And I say, when throughout your day do you have no stimulation? Do you have stillness? And they say, well, when my head hits the pillow. And I'm like, no shit. That's the problem. You're not finding pockets of stillness throughout your day to decompress. The little gnomes in your brain can't filter through anything because you're going. And the only time that you are still is when your head hits the pillow. And so your brain's like, well, good. Now it's time to decompress, but it'll take whatever amount of time it takes. And people are like, I don't know why I can't sleep. And I'm like, I don't know. Close your eyes while you poop and let your brain filter stuff. That's what I tell them. I say, don't take your phone in the bathroom. I know you got to poop. Close your eyes while you poop and let your brain decompress. And it is such a simple thing where I'd say just find pockets of stillness. It doesn't have to be 10, 15 minutes. You don't have to meditate. Just shut everything down and let your brain process without any stimulation or with very limited stimulation. I say TikTok is too much. TV is too much. Podcast is too much.
Yeah.
And just sit. And then they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, I know. You need more stillness.
It's so true. One of the challenges I do for myself, and I recommend if you have a short ride, like a 10-minute, let's say. So it's not too much to ask, but it will be a challenge at first that you're hopping in the car. Yes, you are driving a motor vehicle, but at this point it's, habitual enough.
It's pretty second nature. Yeah.
That I think it's acceptable. And in that time, no radio, no podcast, no call somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
Drive, take in the scenery, just be.
Yeah.
But
Love that.
To your point though, it's the constant stimuli, and you're not getting the stuff out of your head, and you're bringing the worries with you. Again, it's that same energy. So
you can't breathe. Ooh, I love this. Now, I know we've only got a few minutes left.
Okay.
Where do people find you? And if you were going to leave people with one thing, if they have amnesia and they forget everything we talk about, what do you want people to remember? But first, how do they find you?
Okay. First, positivelyproductive.com has, all the directions, right? You can also you're on a podcast platform right now. That's easy for me to say. So hop on over to Positively Living as well. And if you want to have fun and you're on Instagram, I have ridiculous reels and I just have a lot of fun over there.
Those are
fun. Because it is stress management and it is calling out the craziness. And that's the thing too, is that it's your choice here in all of this. But my favorite place to leave people with is less about, oh, this is the thing you need to do to be productive. And this is what, it's yes, action is important, but I want you to remember this, that you are allowed to be a work in progress and a masterpiece simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
That's Sophia Bush. And I love that quote because it reminds you in this moment, you're listening to us right now and you're like, yeah, I want to make changes and I want to course correct and I want to make tweaks and I want to do things better and I want to improve. Great. But you're also amazing. So it's that celebratory, it's that gratitude for yourself and where you are and what you're doing at every single moment. So strive for more, but celebrate where you're at too.
And that is such a powerful energy shift when people can do that. Yeah. Because it's not so heavy.
Yeah.
Like, God,
it's not like you feel like
so heavy.
Yeah. Like you're constantly, I have to do better. I'm not good at I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing for being you. Existing. You're amazing. Right. Exactly. So yeah, it's very common for us to do that. Or just like, I'm not changing at all. I'm a rebel. Okay.
Let me know how that works out for you.
Thank you. I was literally thinking those exact words.
So I say it. So I'm not a hand holder by nature.
Understood. Yes.
Yeah.
What? No, I'm sorry.
If anyone has talked to me, it's very clear that I am not a hand holder by nature. So I just tell people to suffer. Like that's your choice. Like you get, when you're ready to not suffer, come talk to me or Lisa or somebody. Talk to, it doesn't even have to be me. I don't particularly care if you work with me or not. If I'm not your person, live your dream, find someone else. But I'm like, literally suffer. Like I'm going to go talk to the fire department on Monday. And I think they're going to be a little resistant to like bringing me on. And I'm just going to be like, okay, well then your people are going to suffer. Like that's stupid. Don't do that. I'm going to be a little bit nicer about it, but I'm like, suffer.
But that's the gist of it.
That's your choice. And you know what? You have that right. We just don't recommend it. Like you can continue to be cluttered and busy and overwhelmed but why?
Well, and that's the thing too, is that a lot of people will try the DIY route with the productivity and sometimes it works and that's fine. I'm like, if that's what you need to do your due diligence, to buy those courses, to try those things, to try the platforms, to figure out what works and what doesn't, to do the trial and error. But when you are, in this never ending cycle of, well, I've tried it, but it's still not right.
Right.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Whenever
I think
you're
people
ready.
have to suffer enough to be ready to really do the transformational work. And like, until then, like, I'm not going anywhere, like you're not going anywhere. You'll be
Nope.
here. Other
I'll be
people
here.
are ready. And when they're ready, it'll be the right time anyway. So
Yeah, totally.
I love that. Tell us one more time how to find you so people remember.
All right. Positivelyproductive.com, the Positively Living podcast on any player that you play podcasts on, and on Instagram, positively_Lisa. Come have fun with me.
Right? You are.
Yeah.
Fun. Oh my God. Thank you so much, dude. Like,
seriously, thank you. This has been my pleasure. And oh my gosh, wow, what wonderful parallels today that we've brought to it just shows you.
Good.
I keep saying it all the time. It's all connected.
It 100%. Like, we'll have to do more on other things, but
yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm a T-Rex. This is beautiful. Okay, fam, go get some self-awareness and then filter everything with, will this work for me? That's a good question.
Love that question.
Okay, Lisa, love you. You're fabulous.
Right back at you.